Hey guys, we're going to be reacting to 10 worst police officers of all time.
From an NYPD officer joining the mafia to another cop that was linked to 30 murders over a 4-year period, we take a look through 10 of the worst police officers of all time. Number 10. Louis Eppolito. If you're going to cross over to the dark side, there's no bigger way to do it than join the mafia. Louis Eppolito was in the family from the beginning.
Kidding. The mafia?
His father was...
What? The mafia?
Gambino thug Ralph Eppolito. When he applied for a job with the NYPD in 1969, Eppolito denied being related to any members of organized crime groups, making it painfully obvious what his intentions were. After being promoted to detective, he and partner Stephen Caracappa worked for the Lucchese family, passing on confidential information about their rivals, and even executing Gambino captain Eddie Lino in 1990.
Why?
After an FBI investigation, Eppolito was jailed for life, plus 100 years. Number 9. Joseph.
Back then, you just had to be smart to be a police. You just needed to be strong and smart. That's it. No college, no nothing. It's like working at McDonald's.
Joseph Midzianowski was a Chicago police officer labeled as the most corrupt cop. He served as both police officer and drug kingpin, using his knowledge of the streets and gangs to shake down drug dealers. For most of his 22-year career, Midzianowski would run...
So he was a drug lord, and he was getting more? I do not know how that works. Like, how hard is it to get caught stealing drugs out of the back area where they hide all the drugs? Like, I bet somebody did pot, like, I don't know. You would never put drugs in the trash. So I guess he just went ahead and was like, I want them.
On the Chicago Gangs unit, while running his own drug gang at the same time. He was convicted of 10 counts, including drug conspiracy and racketeering in 2001. For his crimes, Joseph Midzianowski was sentenced to life in prison without parole in 2003. Number 8. Stephanie Lazarus. In December 1985, John Rutan broke off his relationship with police officer Stephanie Lazarus and married a critical care nurse named Sherry Rasmussen. In 1986, Rasmussen was found beaten and shot to death. Her case was initially ruled a robbery gone wrong because her BMW was missing. While the case sat cold for 24 years, Stephanie Lazarus...
It's your fault that your BMW is gone. You take care of a freaking BMW.
A Los Angeles Police Department officer, was promoted to the rank of detective in charge of art and forgery. It was only in 2009, during a review of cold cases, that Lazarus finally became a suspect in the Rasmussen case. An undercover officer tailed her, eventually collecting a DNA sample. It was compared to the DNA sample taken from a bite on
Yeah? You recording? Yeah.
Rasmussen's body, and it matched. Lazarus was convicted of first-degree murder in May 2012 and sentenced to 27 years in prison. Number 7. Sidney Dorsey. Dorsey was sheriff of DeKalb County, Georgia from 1996 to 2000. During his time as sheriff, there were allegations of corruption. In August 2000, he lost a runoff election to Derwin Brown. 3 days before Brown was to take office, he was shot 12 times in front of his house by Patrick Cuffey, who worked for Dorsey's private security force. Dorsey confessed to ordering the hit on Brown. He said he was angry over the election and stressed out from a failing marriage and a...
Wow. So smart, bruh. So smart. Like me.
Sexual harassment lawsuit. It was also alleged that Brown was assassinated to stop him from looking into the corruption that plagued Dorsey's office. In 2002, Dorsey was sentenced to 23 years for corruption and received a life sentence for Brown's murder. Number 6. Charles Becker. The first American cop to get the death penalty for murder. Charles Becker was a legend in New York in the early part of the 20th century. His beat was the brothels and vice dens of Manhattan, and he took full advantage of their proprietors by hitting them up for what some say was over $100,000 in protection money. One gambling house owner, named Herman Rosenthal, wasn't into the racket. However, he went to the press about it. 2 days later, Rosenthal was murdered, and the crime was traced back to Becker. After 3 trials, he was
Wow.
convicted and put to death in 1915. Number 5. William Leisure. Leisure was a traffic cop in Los Angeles for 17 years. Yet he had millions of dollars in an offshore account and had a dozen Corvettes. It turns out, Leisure was actually running a criminal enterprise. He ran a stolen...
Do you know how much a Corvette is? 12 Corvettes. Think about that. Hold on. Let me see how much a Corvette is. How much are Corvettes? What are they?
account and had a dozen Corvettes.
Corvettes. 55. 400. Wow. And a convertible is 50. Wow. There is no way he had. What was he, a drug lord? That's a lot of money.
It turns out, Leisure was actually running a criminal enterprise. He ran a stolen car ring, stole and resold luxury yachts, and organized
Well, that's why.
murder for hire schemes.
That too. Probably the criminals pay him for planning the plot. Planning the plots?
He arranged at least 3 murders and was the driver for 2 of them. The first was the murder of a 76-year-old Gilberto Cervantes, who was shot returning home from church. Ann Smith was the second victim. Her crime, divorcing one of Leisure's friends. Leisure had an accomplice.
Why? Tell me why. Why?
Dennis France shoot Smith in her mother's beauty salon while staging a fake robbery. Leisure's third victim, Tony De Los Reyes, was also shot during a fake robbery. Leisure was arrested aboard
A fake robbery? It's just a prank, bro. I'm totally not robbing your house.
a stolen yacht outside of Oakland in 1986. 5 years later, Leisure pleaded guilty to 2 counts of second-degree murder and was given a sentence of 15 years to life. Number 4. Jonathan Garcia. Many corrupt cops argue that to exist in the system, you need to be a little bent yourself. That was Philadelphia policeman Jonathan Garcia's excuse for why he started stealing heroin from drug dealers and reselling it on the street. Often in uniform. Along with partner Sidney Joannis, Garcia started robbing dealers in 2009 and not reporting what they took as evidence. It began with just cash, but eventually the duo realized that they could profit even more by dealing drugs as well.
That's a lot of money.
Garcia got 17 years in jail for his extracurricular activities. Number 3. Manuel Pardo. At one time, Manuel Pardo was a U.S. naval officer with a distinguished record. After leaving military service, he became a member of the Florida Highway Patrol in the 1970s, until he was fired in 1980 for writing fake traffic tickets. Soon after landing a
Writing fake traffic tickets. So smart. The heck?
job with a small police department in Miami-Dade County, Pardo was charged with police brutality in a case that was ultimately dismissed. By 1985, his law enforcement career had come to an end after he gave false testimony in a drug trial. That is when Pardo seemingly snapped. Over the course of 3 months in 1986, Pardo went on a crime spree, committing 9 murders, as well as numerous robberies and drug deals. Pardo kept photos of his victims and recorded some of the details of the murders in a diary. both of which were enough
in a diary.
to convict him and sentence him to death in 1988.
Good.
Number 2. Antoinette Frank. Frank was a member of the New Orleans Police Department. As well as working for the NOPD, she also worked security detail at Kim On Restaurant.
Frank.
At the time, Frank had developed a strange relationship with 18-year-old Roger Lacaze, a drug dealer with a history of violence. On March 4th, 1995, Frank and Lacaze robbed Kim On Restaurant. Frank fatally shot fellow police officer Ronald Williams, whose second son was born a week before his death. She then executed 2 members of the family who owned the restaurant. Frank and Lacaze both escaped, but Frank returned to the scene of the crime a short time later as a police officer. Witnesses later identified her as the shooter. Both Frank and Lacaze were convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death. This was the first time a police officer was convicted of murdering another police officer. Number 1. Gerard John Schaefer.
Once you murder another police, like, bruh, you're stupid for doing it. I'm just
County, Florida Sheriff's deputy moonlighting as a serial killer. Gerard John Schaefer initially satisfied his murderous impulses by killing animals. A failed teacher and having been granted no entry into priesthood, his third choice seemingly turned out in his favor, and he worked as a cop for a year between 1971 and 1972, until he was fired for the false imprisonment of 2 young female hitchhikers. Schaefer later abducted 2
hitchhiking is illegal. Unless what time they were that. But they ban hitchhiking. No hitchhiking. You hitchhike, you're dead.
teenage girls and proceeded to torture and kill them. Soon after, their bodies were found. Schaefer, for some reason, was a primary suspect. Upon searching his home, their suspicions were proved correct, finding evidence linking him to 8 missing girls over a span of 4 years. While Schaefer was only tried in the murder of 2 girls whose body were found, he was ultimately linked to up to 30 murders. Convicted to 2 life sentences, Schaefer found himself the victim of his own favorite pastime when he was stabbed to death in prison in 1995.
This will be this video, guys, and bye.